Hello and happy Wednesday. I wanted to try something a little different today. A few weeks ago, Preston, Phil, and I discussed the book of Hosea. And today, I wanted to discuss another little known book that is often overlooked in the Bible. We're going to do a brief overview of the book of Zephaniah. Have you ever read that book before? It's in the latter half of the Old Testament in a section called the Minor Prophets. Zephaniah is a short book. It's 3 chapters long. You could read through it in about 10 to 15 minutes. Zephaniah was a prophet in Judah who served during the reign of King Josiah, and he was likely a spiritual influence in the life of the king. At the beginning of King Josiah's reign, Judah was in much spiritual darkness, celebrating unrighteousness, and the book of the law wasn't found yet. And Zephaniah spoke to much of this darkness. There are 2 themes that we can find in this book, which is the Lord's judgment and the Lord's blessing. The Lord's judgment makes up most of the 3 chapters in the book. And Zephaniah talks about the coming judgment of the Lord on the earth, Judah, Philistia, Moab, Ammon, Ethiopia, Assyria, Jerusalem, and all the other nations. In Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 2 through 3, the book opens by saying, I will utterly sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. I will sweep away man and beast. I will sweep away the birds of the heaven and the fish of the sea, and the rebel with the wicked. I will cut off mankind from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. Zephaniah opens with a sweeping statement from God about the final judgment, and this points us to the return of Christ. When Jesus returns, he is going to judge the world and the unrighteous. He is going to make a new creation, and he's going to give salvation to believers. Zephaniah has a lot of doom and gloom, but saves the best for last in the final section when he talks about the Lord's blessing in chapter 3 of verses 9 through 20. And verse 17 says, the Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exalt over you with loud singing. Zephaniah expresses God's love for his people and God's celebrating over them. It's also important to point out the I will statements from God in chapter 3 of verses 18 through 20. It says it's very encouraging for the people of Judah at that time, but also for the believers, because these are promises from God. God says, I will gather those of you who mourn. I will deal with all your oppressors. I will save the lame and gather the outcast. I will change their shame into praise. I will bring you in. I will make you renowned and praised. So, how does Zephaniah speak to us today? We are reminded of God's judgment and his graciousness. Every single person will stand before God to give an account of his or her life. Each person will either experience his judgment or his salvation. God expresses his judgment and his grace through Christ. We see God's judgment by Christ being our substitute for sin and taking the punishment upon himself. We see God's grace through Jesus so that we can enjoy everlasting life through faith in him and never having to fear the wrath of God. Now, these are only a few things to consider the next time you read through Zephaniah. And I hope you will try to do it sometime this week. I hope you have a blessed day and hope to see you Sunday. And agape.